Recording in progress.
Welcome everyone to our crypto panel session on day 4 of Blockchain Z Days. So decentralized cryptocurrency. It's been with us now since 2009 when the Bitcoin system was set running by its mysterious creator. In 2010, someone agreed to buy a pizza for Bitcoin in a famous sale that showed that this crypto stuff can have some kind of value. Move on several years though, and crypto coins and tokens are still not widely used for payments. Prices often skyrocket and dive so much that it's hard to predict what will happen next. Is cryptocurrency maturing? Is it surviving just for get-rich schemes? What's the view of central banks to all this? So these are a few things we'll consider in today's discussion. I'm Daniel Simpson. I'm a senior business analyst and blockchain spokesperson for EPAM, and I'll be the facilitator for today's session. And I'd like to introduce our panel today, who between them have great experience in both blockchain technologies and finance and are eager to provide their thoughts and points of view on this subject. So to introduce everyone, first off, Alistair Brown. Alistair heads up EPAM's Open Banking and Payments Group, which he founded 6 years ago. The group generates approximately $45 million per year, deploys around 750 EPAMers worldwide. Next, we have Eugene Boborad, more commonly known as Chuck. Chuck in his time has moved from programming to IT, then to communications, did a stint on a political operative, then moved to publishing, product development, and now blockchain, doing business development for the Freeton blockchain. Then we have Thomas Horkhammer. So Thomas is also an EPAMer and would describe himself as a senior business analyst by role, T-shaped by design, and his interest areas include DeFi, financial services, accounting, legal, value-added ecosystems, and platforms. And last but by no means least, welcome Alexander Petkovic, better known as Sasha. Sasha is the blockchain professionals community lead and also leads the EPAM blockchain practice. She's been in the space since 2015, mostly working on implementing both enterprise industry projects and advising in the public space. So just before we start our main discussion with the panel, I'd like to invite our audience to post questions into the chat section if they have them. And we're aiming to spend a few minutes towards the end of the session putting some of those to our panelists. So let's kick off with our first topic, which is around the general use of crypto. So decentralized networks and blockchains are not easy to understand or easy to compare with anything we have right now. So will people need to understand blockchain in order to use cryptocurrency? So Sasha, would you kick us off with your view?
Well, I actually believe that when it's a true mass adoption, the people don't need to understand how does it work. And all this complexity, this technology complexity, I mean, who now understands how really their chip card, like chip banking card works? No, they just wave that around the terminal and it works. And well, even like honestly speaking, I guess the half of the population doesn't understand how microwave work. It doesn't prevent them of like warming up the food and eating that. So I actually believe that there's no necessity to understand how does it work. There's probably necessity to believe that it works. So to start using that. But I mean, I'm in my daily life, like I do have experience of buying coffee and paying ethers and buying the t-shirts and paying ethers. So I guess that's almost like the near door. Yeah.
Thanks, Sasha. Alistair, what's your view?
So there's a broader debate at the moment with the central banks who've got hold of digital currencies and are now finally taking it seriously. And I think one of the reasons for that happening is that the Facebook and Libra experiment kicked off something that looked as though it was going to be real and was quite scary and almost tangible, and then it kind of diffused and went away. The next step was really the central bank saying, okay, let's have the academics look at this properly, because we need to figure out what the equation would be between the volatility of crypto and the stability of fiat. And that debate is still going on. It's more mature now than ever before. the Bank of England is taking it very seriously. That there looks as though there's going to be a play whereby it becomes real, and there is a sort of crypto pound and a crypto euro and so on and so on. But the relationship with blockchain is one of the tripping over points. So Bank of England is saying, do we really need blockchain as part of this new thing that we're going to do? Does that guarantee stability in relation to fiat in some way? They're right in the middle of that discussion now. It's an incomplete thing, which makes this exciting, but also rather ambiguous, of course. So there are other uses for crypto that are now storming ahead, with things like particularly stable coin, which, as the name suggests, of course, has stability written into it because there is a basis in something like gold or something like a fiat currency. So it's not really crypto in the proper sense. So we've got interpretations and new things going on. So it's an interesting and inconclusive moment that we find ourselves in.
Thanks. It sounds like the Bank of England got a bit of a head start as well on that. So yeah, we'll touch on the volatility aspects a little bit later as well. Thomas, what's your view?
Yeah, so it depends. So I will just say that if it's about the regular day-to-day use, you do not necessarily need to understand. Like with everything new, however, it comes with an appetite. So it's with like any financial products, any new financial products. If there's a great marketing campaign behind it, people will actually buy it. But then after a while, the thing may explode and they start complaining. So I think it's really good that people at least understand the basics, because it's quite different, not necessarily in its usage, but the underlying technology and the underlying ideas.
Thanks, Chuck.
Yeah, I read this article recently, and it was all about what is blockchain. Most people think that blockchain is something that can help build trust, but the authors of that paper actually argued that it's not a trust building thing, it's a confidence machine. So as opposed to trust, which implies that somebody can abuse you, there's no abuse on blockchain. It's like a flick of the switch. You don't care how the wires are crossed, but you know when you flick the switch, the lights usually come on. And after a couple of times, you know that they will come on. And the same thing is with the blockchain. So once people start living with it, start believing that this is just a fact of life, they won't have to pay any special attention to it, and they will not have to understand it exactly the way, as Sasha mentioned, you don't have to understand how the microwave works to use it. So I think in the very near future, once we have adoption, people will stop caring how the thing is done inside. They'll just start using it.
Yeah, like you said, like many other things that we use in life, we just become transparent after a while, for sure. Okay, so our next question for the panel: will cryptocurrency ever be used by the average person to pay for things? Thomas, what's your view on this one?
Yeah, I'll mute myself. Yes, I fully agree. And I think we could even, it depends on the definition of cryptocurrency, of course. So it could even go into areas that are yet, say, unknown to us. So we're not familiar with, say, paying for stuff with your NFT. So I think that would really add value to a lot of people, both in the typical developed and less developed worlds. Because in the current society, say the current socio-economical system, money, the concept of currency is not evenly distributed. And that's why I think the cryptocurrency can really make a difference here, irrespective of its type, size, or underlying idea.
Chuck, what's your opinion? Are we going to start?
Well, let's just not call it cryptocurrency. It's electronic money. If you put it like that, well, most of China is using electronic money every day. What's it called? The two dominant Alipay and the other one, the WeChat thing.
WeChat and WeChat Pay. Yeah.
Yeah. So these two cover, like, I don't know, 90% of cash transactions in China, maybe. So like, it's a fact of life already. That's one thing. Second thing is, so the obvious question is, why hasn't it happened yet with the crypto? And the answer is very simple. There was no blockchain network that could handle that kind of load. So as you know, Visa and MasterCard are doing between 40 and 65,000 transactions per second. So combine that and you have like 100, 150,000. There used to be, there hasn't been a single network that was capable of that. We are entering a new age where a couple of networks will be capable technically, and then it's a question of adoption. If somebody can bring a couple of 100 million users, then they will suddenly realize that they have a payment method which is not under control of any government. And actually, that's what Libra and Telegram tried to do, and that's what made the regulators, mostly American, but all around the world, very uneasy, and that's why they torpedoed both projects. So now maybe another project will come out without the financing, without the ways of torpedoing it by the authorities. And if and when that happens, that will be a revolution.
I actually don't believe that it would be one network or like the majority or like 2 or 3. I'm more looking to interoperability across networks, thinking that, well, there would be more and more cryptocurrencies, there would be different qualities, and I more believe that we will find the nice way to transact in between, where that means that you would be able to pay with what you prefer, what is in your local community, is like in use. So I'm more believing in interoperability than in like super network, which would be established across the universe.
So if I can riff on that a little bit, Sasha, we have an ongoing relationship with Verifone, who is one of the two big players in the duopoly of payment point of sale terminals. They've gone from that black box on the shop counter up into a series of different programs that take them into payment gateway capability. We've done a lot of work integrating alternative payment methods into what they do, so that they have that omni-channel capability, and they're appealing to as many organizations and people as possible. We've worked with Vipps, which is the Norwegian instant payment system, Swish, which is the Swedish equivalent, Mobile Pay, the Danish one. We've done PayPal. Next taxi off the rank is crypto. It's just another payment method. Okay, so we're learning at the very practical end precisely how to do this. But there's an even better use case out there, which is cross-border payments for Mexican temporary workers in America. Whereby they can be paid in crypto, but receive their money in pesos back in Mexico. So this is the product of a group called Safety Pay, which I was researching this morning as part of my work as a judge on the Emerging Payments Awards judging panel. And it's a very interesting group. They're using an app, a Mexican app called DAP, and effectively that exchange is immediate. This is having a major impact on financial inclusion, because there are about 2 billion people across the planet who are completely disenfranchised by the standard financial services capability that's out there, so banks as we know them. So this is a breakthrough moment, and if crypto is part of that, then it's going to go big very, very quickly, and the volume is going to be absolutely huge. So it's very exciting, because those two use cases are very real. We're actually involved as EPAM in the first of the two.
And speaking about the retail side, I mean, I know the Czech retailer who, like, on which website, and that's the size of like kind of close to Amazon, and it has like a lot of products there and a lot of stuff there, and you can pay with Bitcoin easily, and that's delivered to your house. And most of the European countries, like, it's delivered to most of the European countries. And I mean, I'll see that. You go there, and that's a typical retailer, like the big retailer, where you can pay with crypto right now, and it's already for some time. I mean, it's not like a far future that you will have all of this. That's now.
And Sophie, I'm just curious, are they changing their prices every 10 seconds?
Well, you can check that. No, they have fixed prices in normal currency, I would say. Well, my expectations that they have slightly higher price in Bitcoin, and that does it well.
Because that is of course a bit of a challenge. Paying with crypto is like any foreign exchange, and there is no issue at all if everybody basically is using it as such. But currently it's so volatile, and there's always one part of the supply chain that is not on the crypto currency. So there's a huge business risk, and that usually is actually passed on to customers, so to retail.
Well, what I would like to say that well, they are live for more than a year and don't have any commercial issues as far as I see, which means that their commercial model is pretty stable, which means that, yeah, and it doesn't look like complex, and you don't need to do much. Like, just go and research there. I mean, we can speculate a lot how dangerous is that volatility, but while we see the examples, and there's not only one example, you can buy, I think you can pay with Bitcoin or Ether now even for the Gap gift cards. And again, that's all exists, that's all used by people, and it doesn't look like dangerous. It doesn't look like those companies are suffering.
No, I agree. Yeah.
More importantly, this crypto example, this cross-border Mexican example, actually sidesteps one of the big problems of cross-border payments that the likes of MasterCard and Visa have been struggling with over the years, which is the fees that are inevitably paid because it goes across a border and involves two different legislations and jurisdictions. With crypto and this particular safety pay thing, those fees just go away. So it's actually cheaper for the players who are making it happen to happen. So it's more attractive for the financial services and players involved. So that has to be another reason why this could take off and accelerate very quickly.
Why about the cross-border payments? Recently, we've been showing, I think the last presentation from yesterday was that we were showing Ripple payments, which go smoothly, like we were establishing the connection, and that's a cross-border connection, just moving XRP. Like there was, like the whole exercise was like in a matter of minutes, and you can get that easily, and we can easily, like we do have this Ripple in the box connection, we can easily deploy that in any bank. I mean, currently that's for us, there would be like, there would be more regulational project than a technical project. But in terms of the POCs, that's like 2 or 3 weeks, and that's it. Everything works and integrated with the backend bank system.
Well, you mentioned regulation. Like the thing is, it's so different. The crypto world is so different, and our idea at Freeton is that we don't care about regulation. We are building another world which will have its own whatever you want, and it's going to be faster and cheaper and more efficient. And eventually, people will have a choice. And you know, any talk of regulation brings you down, because obviously the bankers and the politicians, they want to keep the old world where they were the kings, and they're scared of the new one. So yeah, I mean, like even mentioning NFTs makes lawyers laugh, because it's nothing in the real world, and people are spending millions of dollars on them. So I mean, we should distinguish between blockchains and regulation and the old world, because these things are almost unconnected.
Well, then help me Chuck here, because being individual or being the network, I don't care about regulations, because yeah, there's no way to catch, and there's no way actually to provide any claims or something. But being the official financial service company, that's another deal. I mean, you have to comply for the country regulations. We're also like, you know, we're working a lot on OpenVASP protocol, basically enabling official companies, like official virtual asset service providers. I mean, everyone who wants to trade crypto to comply with the fast travel rule because there's no any other way to survive. I mean, there's no way, because like you can do the transactions. You cannot report it anywhere because all the official organizations will ask you, what's that? And basically anti-money laundering compliance, it's still mandatory for all the official organizations. So, I mean, for me, there is like, you know, the crypto world and there is the official financial world. And being, you know, probably you are in a better situation, but I'm always like working with enterprises who are obliged to comply. And for them, they might be willing, but they find the official way. And actually, because of this, you know, the gray situation, the reputation of crypto is quite down. And like later on, I would be speaking about like what is preventing POCs of go live. And I would say one of the biggest struggles of public projects, or actually crypto projects, is reputation of blockchain, because immediately everybody thinks that those are the criminals who are finding, I know, drug dealers and weapon and something. That's, what do you think, like, would it improve?
But you just said exactly the same thing as I did. There's one world and there's another world. And the bigger the new world is, the more people will choose to live in the new world and just leave the old world behind. If you are working for crypto and you're not exchanging for fiat at any official exchange, for example, you're doing P2P swapping, you don't pay taxes, you don't exist. So that's the new world.
This is precisely why the central banks want to bring crypto into the tent rather than having it outside of the tent. So they want to be an extension of their old world into that new world, so they still occupy that space. Otherwise they lose control. They're still trying to figure it out. And of course, alternative providers have got there first, as they always do. So it's going to be a very interesting battleground over the next 2 to 5 years, I would guess.
They want to be in a central of decentralized network, right?
Of course. But taxation, to your point, taxation centralized from a national government, trying to get hold of the information, let alone the correct percentages, that's going to be an absolute nightmare unless this central banking digital currency concept continues, therefore, to occupy 95, 98% of the payment flows. If it doesn't, the loss is catastrophic.
But still, yeah, Alistair, but still, if vendors are prepared to trade for crypto, to forego the official channels, you can't do much about that.
Well, exactly. Yeah. No, I think the genie is out of the bottle, as we say. Yeah.
Looks like this. And with the taxation, we also had a nice presentation on the first day with the overview of the taxation across the world of the crypto. And it was really nice to see how different it is.
And where do we need to go?
Yeah, exactly. That was like exactly like showing you clearly where it's taxed and where it's not. And there is even the place in Zug, you can pay taxes in crypto. I mean, you can already pay your tax money.
Sasha, what's the big deal? There used to be, there still are a lot of payment providers like BitPay, for example, probably the oldest one. You can just put a widget on your website and accept like Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum. But the thing is, you get dollars into your account, so you don't really care what they accept.
Well, it's not a big deal. I'm also worried about that. I'm just like, again, there's like the gap between the worlds, and that's like appearing like, well, we can definitely see. I mean, in Netherlands, I'm driving, and now every second billboard saying you that you better buy crypto, earn on crypto, and that's like from every shower actually. So I guess the speed of like change is increasing.
On the subject, I mean, we were talking about governments and how they're playing catch up, and which is why they're looking to generate their own CBDC themselves, to kind of get in the game, as it were. But how do you think governments, like if crypto starts becoming popular, in this new world and takes over? How do you think governments should respond if that happens? I'm just thinking about a worldwide view now. And how do you think they will respond So should respond, how should they respond, and how will they respond?
Is that one for me? I think, as I said earlier, it's in the balance. It's in the balance because the linkage between fiat, which is stable, and the other thing, which isn't, and it's all rather ugly and associated with criminal behavior and all of this stuff, that they need to find a way, blockchain attached or not, in order to have some sort of parity between the two currency types, at which point this taxation problem goes away and then they start to own and continue to control. That's their perspective, that's their vision. I suspect they'll achieve 2/3 of it or half of it, but not the whole thing, because there are too many independent operators. If you look at the problems that international governments have had to get hold of tax from the likes of Google and other such organizations, because where do they exist? Where are they based? Where is their activity? How to define that? Tax processes are several years, 5, 10 years behind the reality of the modern technological world. It's a global village enabled now by some very sophisticated technologies, and the individual governments of the first world are way behind getting their heads around it. So there's going to have to be a lot of work to catch up, to get hold of that, to create parity between something stable and unstable, solve that problem, and then regain control. It's going to be fascinating to see if they make it happen. I don't think they will.
Well, I actually think that they will, because, well, that's the most logical thing. I mean, if I would be like the central bank, that's a dream. I mean, that's controlled, like that's liquid from the very beginning. That's fully, like, if I'm central bank, if I'm issuing that, that means it's fully controlled, like kind of centrally, and that's traceable. I mean, no more nightmare with all those like reconciliations with this bloody fiat, which is disappearing, then appearing from somewhere else. I mean, if I would be the central bank, I don't see, like, besides the paradigm shift and the necessity to basically persuade everybody in a country that it's the new money. But yeah, they did so many denominations. They did so many like the change of the image and issue new like paper and plastic ones, that for them move like for any central bank move to crypto would be kind of easy. And I see only benefits there. Okay, there would be associated cost for the project itself, but after that, I mean, it's
traceability should be improved.
Yeah, yes, and liquidity, and that's cheap to issue. It's like all the benefits. I mean, just do that, and then they already have all the mechanism to control. That means that I actually don't know why the government like is so slow in adoption, like so slow in digesting how does it work and what to do, and create this, you know, transformation program to understand how to operate that. Because from like factual point of view, if that's government centrally issued crypto, I don't see any problem.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be crypto. They just don't need crypto. They just don't need crypto for the CBDC. What they need, actually, in addition to what you said, all quite valid reasons, there's one other great thing that they get when they do CBDCs. They can get the money that vanishes. They can issue money that is only valid for a couple of days or months, and the money that can only be used to buy certain things, like
all this programmable money. Yes, exactly. And that's the whole new universe.
Yeah, but the flip side is that overnight all your banks become unnecessary, because what's their function then? They don't deal with customers because there are no more customers. Everybody has an account with the central bank. And the second thing, the other services they provide is loans. Well, there are specialized companies that do that, and they are not banks, and they don't need all the regulation, because providing loans is much easier than banking in general. So I think that's the reason they don't go this way, because banks have very strong lobbyists and they prevent that.
Not
because
to kill
banks
the
will be
industry
irrelevant overnight.
So like the short would be not to kill the whole industry, because yeah, the central bank is issuing accounts for all the populations. It's totally controlled, like no volatility because they control that. And yeah, that's traceable, liquid, is it like cheap and programmable.
it's a
and
little bit
pension
too
money,
late
everything.
because now we have crypto, and that's an alternative to that. And people who do not want to deal with government issued money, they have another way. 20 years ago, that was not the case. We only had this, what was called Liberty Reserve and eGold, both centralized and both destroyed by the US government. Now go and destroy Bitcoin. It's not that easy.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think it's all about control, of course. So central bank, by its mere name, is about being in control. DLT, also then by its mere name, is about decentralization. Means there's no single entity actually controlling it. So these are quite, say, different different kind of networks, but not from an infrastructure point of view, but from a business value point of view. And they can actually coexist. So my 2 cents is that they actually, you could have CBDCs to kind of control the on and off ramping, because right now that's a little bit of a gray area, difficult to track. You can actually have the on and off ramps with mere widgets. It's not necessarily controlled, and central entities, central agencies, they don't like not knowing. But there's also other kind of solutions. So you don't necessarily need to control the money supply. So that of course you could do. But if it's about taxation, for instance, you could just have kind of mandatory taxation on the exit, so on the off ramp. So I think they can actually coexist. So there's no big concern. That is actually what should happen. What will happen is, of course, they will just fall back to what they used to. And as with all new things, try to kind of retrofit them to their old models and views on how the world exists. So that will require some time to just to settle the whole new idea of not being in control and having to find other ways to make people do what you want them to do.
Thanks, guys. Some great views there. And I think we were touching on it there, but the idea of the CDBC, if it was going to come about, and being able to, kind of have sort of some traceability of transactions due to that. But obviously in the larger public blockchains, generally the transactions are anonymous, or at least pseudo-anonymous. You see value transferring from address to address, but you obviously cannot put a name or address against those, or physical address against those numbers. But is that is that a good or is that a bad thing? If I pay for something and I hand someone a £5 note, that system of payment is providing me with like anonymity. But some proposals, I think, of CDBCs are, you can use central bank money, but then there'll be some, KYC and some, we need to sign up to use it. Therefore, they could, see our transaction. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Is it somewhere in the middle? Thomas, do you want to make a start? Do you want to kick us off with that one?
Yeah, it may depend on you as a person. So I do not particularly mind people having insight in the transactions I do, because it's more like an issue of the size of the volume. So okay, there will be billions of transactions. Will they be able to actually flesh out that I bought something? So it's I say in essence, I don't have a preference. I don't have a big concern about pseudonymity or anonymity. There has to be a need, though. So we live in an era that a big data era, basically, and we found the techniques and tools to analyze everything to death. So that is a bigger concern, because we're sitting in this pile of data. We can actually, for whatever reason, on a Sunday afternoon, we can actually find ourselves a reason to analyze it and to start diving into the data. Yeah, for me, it should serve a purpose. Of course, as a person, say my personal opinion is it's not necessarily an issue, but if I could, I buy myself a pseudonym, or I buy myself my own, say, decentral identity that is not traceable to me. That's also possible.
Yeah, there's lots of initiatives going on in that area as well, isn't there? But Alistair, what do you make of this? Is it
so there's a recent obsession with data and data monetization in the whole financial services community, which is what we're all thinking about, I suppose, which is the more you know about your customer, the more you can serve them better, more finely, more precisely. Marketing campaigns no longer have to be broad brush, they can be really specific to a particular slice of society. You've even got to the point where using GPS, you can figure out if somebody is walking past a store that they've used before, and therefore send them an invitation for 20% off their favorite shirt or pair of shoes or whatever it may be. We've got to a level of sophistication that's superb. Banks won't want to let go of that. They want more of it. So the idea of crypto being completely traceable because it's using the blockchain and we've got a specific alphanumeric code for a particular transaction, fantastic. And I know what Chuck's going to say, which is no. It's going the opposite direction. Total anonymity, you can disguise what you're doing, but of course, then the issue is criminality, and there is a complete policing issue on a global scale, which is international, and it's massive and it's complex, and there are going to be some very clever criminals who think, yeah, this is an absolute party for us now. So there are two ways in which this will go. This explains why the central banks are trying to get a hold of it, because as we suspect, the genie is probably out of the bottle already. How much of it they can catch and cram back into the bottle remains to be seen. As I've said, I suspect it's too late.
Let me brush off on a couple of things. So first of all, it's been a party for hundreds of years for the criminals with fiat money, be it gold or paper or whatever you call, and it's still big. And most cocaine is paid for in dollars, and opium and stuff like that. So I mean, it is just no contest. Anyway, what I wanted to start with is that privacy in the traditional sense is rather recent invention. It actually started happening when people moved to big cities, namely London, and people didn't know each other, and that was security through obscurity. Nobody knew you, so you could do basically what you wanted. And in big cities, it's more or less the same. Well, London is the flagship city with number of cameras like unreal compared to the number of residents, and so it's leading the other way. But still, in big cities, you can have a degree of anonymity. And now what is happening, the state, as all states combined and individually, they try to take it back. They try to take your privacy back for different reasons, for financial reasons, as Alistair has described in detail, for advertising, for fine-tuning financial services, whatever. And the governments want that as well, because the governments want one thing: they want stability. They want the politicians, they want to keep their seats, whatever happens, and you can look around it. It happens all around the world. So for that, de-anonymizing people is very helpful. Taking away your privacy is very helpful. But obviously the genie is out of the bottle and you can't take it away completely. Oh, just one word: Monero. Monero is not that big, but it provides complete anonymity. Whatever people are whispering, like, oh yeah, a friend of mine who knows shit said that Monero can be traced. No, it can't. And then we have another phenomenon, which is DeFi, which It's a scam by itself, but it allows you to launder any amount of money in a matter of seconds. You just buy one token, swap it for another, then another, and then you take it out in Bitcoin, and like it's a totally different money. Absolutely no trace left. Absolutely. Actually, this idea was given to me by the security analyst at one of the banks. He said, like, yeah, that's a big problem we have. We can't do anything about that. So yeah, the world has moved on, and unless something happens to Bitcoin or to USDT, the tethers, it's going to be going on. And another thing about USDT is the world was waiting for the what's it called, AG of SDNY, the Attorney General for the Southern District of New York. They had an investigation into tethers, and everybody I know was sure that tether is done. And what did it happen with a whimper? I mean, it was so hilarious. Those guys investigated Trump for years, and this thing was over in half a year, and they couldn't do anything against probably the biggest scam in the world, because tethers are basically not backed by anything. And now it turns out they've been buying US stocks with dollars, which they take against tethers. Like, I mean, it's just mind-blowing, and the authorities can't do anything about it. So think about that.
Yeah, I just want to touch on the volatility aspect, actually, with because a lot of people think that this is a barrier to widespread adoption. The fact that you know, crypto, in a real sense, is fluctuating so much against the US dollar. And there's some comments in the chat along those lines. So is stablecoin, is a stablecoin the answer? So obviously we have things like Tether, which is supposed to be backed by real dollars. So one Tether is always worth $1.
No, it's not backed by real dollars anymore. They stopped claiming that a couple of years ago.
It's a basket of assets, I think, treasury part. It's so it's really hybrid. So it's only backed by some dollar equivalent by name. There's basis risk all over the place. So it's yeah.
But if we can prove it, will it work? If it's if you can prove that a stable coin is backed by, say, in a cryptographic way, is that the answer for people to start using crypto coins, so that you know you always know that your one coin is worth the same thing?
I'm sorry about interrupting you. I see it in the same way as the US debt. Nobody cares about US debt because it will never be paid back, because the economy is growing and it's just numbers. So same thing with tethers, although there is absolutely no way to exchange tethers back for dollars through Tether itself. They're printing more and more tethers, and people are willing to buy it, and that way you can get dollars out. So it's not really like the backing is not that important. While the bubble is growing, yeah, you'll have more dollars.
And I also don't believe that it will attract like the private customers more. I mean, companies, yes, because when the company need to pay to each other, they prefer something not volatile. And if there would be any token which is backed by euro or dollar, they can do reconciliations in between. The companies would love that. And that will be B2B token, and that's nice to do with the stable coin. That would be like on any, you know, private like ecosystem based solution. The stable coin is a good answer when they need to do like to pay to each other. But I mean, for the generic route, I guess the volatility so far was an attraction. The majority of the people start trading crypto because they want to earn money out of the thin air. And then they bank on volatility, and that attracts actually more and more people. And that's what we see on the billboards. I mean, I think like the stable coins, they're more for B2B, and the generic crowd would love the volatility.
Yeah, this is about the perception of risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Stablecoin is recognized as being exactly what it says it is. So great name, thank you very much. And those who like a bit of risk can go further up the chain, because there are already various versions of this thing out there. Another challenge for the people who want to centralize this whole thing and make it apparently risk-free. Again, that one's gone already.
Yeah, actually there is one reasonably regulated stablecoin, which is USDC, which is affiliated with the biggest, the biggest regulated exchange, Coinbase. And for business purposes, it's quite usable. Just why not?
Some interesting views there. So I just want to just read out a couple of the comments we've got in our chat, just along the lines of volatility, more of a statement than a question. So Sergey says Bitcoin volatility is not so large as earlier. If we compare this with any other listed altcoin, BTC is stable. Siddharth says the pricing volatility of Bitcoin or the altcoins are highly speculative. The classic example is Dogecoin's price fluctuation. So, yeah, the fluctuation issue is always a big problem, and maybe a barrier to widespread adoption. Okay, I think we've come to the end of our discussion. Some very lively points of view there. Thanks, everybody. So really hope you've enjoyed the session today. Thanks for joining us, and stay tuned for our next session starting shortly, Beyond the Blockchain POC.
I have to run for that, guys. And it was a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Alistair. Thank you, Chuck, Thomas, Daniel. I had a nice time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.